All right, parenting. Today we will be discussing stop yelling and start connecting with your children. Today our guest is Sandra Oluwadare. She is a certified parenting coach and child behavior consultant. It's such a pleasure to have you in the studio with us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So this question today is one that so many parents, I'm pretty sure, can relate to.
Yeah.
Stop yelling. Seriously? Wait, what even counts as yelling?
Okay, so once you're raising your voice, once the tone of your voice has changed, once the pitch has increased from what it is normally, that's yelling already.
Yeah, but shouting and yelling not different.
It's not different. Shouting is yelling. Yes, once your tone, like we're speaking now, the moment I increase my pitch, I'm beginning to yell because you can hear me, so there's no reason for me to increase my tone or my pitch. So that counts as yelling.
Okay, so let's talk about the effects. Because if you're asking that something should be stopped, it means that it has a negative effect.
True.
So what are the effects of yelling at your children exactly?
Wow, so many negative effects. Now, yelling at children first creates fear and anxiety in the child. It leads to lots of behavioral problems. It also alters the structure and the function of the brain. Because children are developing, they're growing up. There's a particular way they should be spoken to. So at that point, when you begin to go off balance, it's definitely going to affect the structure of the brain. And then there's this part of the brain called the hippocampus that is responsible. It improves learning and memory. Once a child is exposed to consistent yelling, that part of the brain begins to decrease. And so you say, oh, this child is not concentrating, this child can't listen. But you don't know that the way you're speaking to the child is actually responsible for that in the child's life. And then yelling also increases the production of stress hormones in the child. So you can imagine a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old who has to go through verbal abuse, who has to, live with yelling day in, day out. You can imagine the kind of adult that child is going to become. You can imagine the emotional baggage the child is already carrying on his tiny shoulders. So the negative effects are so much. We have children who they grow up, even from when they're young, they can't even form healthy relationships. They have difficulty managing stress because, everything is just happening at the same time. Another thing yelling does is that it hurts your relationship with your child. So a lot of parents say, oh, I want to connect with my child. Or they're like, okay, so I have a good relationship with my child. But you realize that the way you speak to the child begins to pull the child away. So on your part, you're trying your best to give your best to the child, but unintentionally pushing the child away. So it hurts your relationship with your child. And once there's no relationship, really, it gets to a point where you wake up one morning, your child is seated next to you, but you've lost the child. And in the world we live in today, we want to keep our children as close to us as possible because gone are the days where you say, okay, you stayed out late, your father is going to lock you outside. I mean, you can't try it today because Google is there. We have so many influences out there waiting to actually teach your child or waiting to support your child. So as much as possible, you don't want to push your child away. So yelling has no effect at all. It has no positive effect on the child. And one very important thing is your child will mirror you. They will do what they see you do. So a child that used to be calm would wake up one day and begin to yell. Even when the child goes to school, the child wants to relate with his peers. The child is yelling because that's the best way he can express himself. And so you find that for parents who hit their children, one day the child just gives you a slap. It's not just happening, it's been brewing over the years.
I came across an article recently that was talking about how to communicate your thoughts to your children. And It reminded me of a video I saw of a woman who was trying to get her 3 sons to go do their chores, like go clean up your room and everything. And she was, of course, raising her voice at them, probably in frustration after having told them 1,001 times. And in that kind of situation, does it count as you know, because some people will say yelling is abusive. Does it count as you abusing your children just by, you know, raising your voice at them, trying to get them to do what they have to do?
Okay, so for the parents, most parents don't want to do that intentionally. But today, stress levels are high. Parents have come into parenting with their own school of thoughts. Some parents are even parenting today with lots of trauma that is yet to be unpacked.
Sure.
So this trauma that is locked up inside, sometimes you even say, oh, I'm not going to do this to my child, but you realize that once you get triggered, it comes out. You know, so when children don't listen the first time or the second time, it's because that is how we have programmed them to react or respond.
Really now?
Yes, because when a child there's what we call selective listening.
Okay.
So you're talking to a child, the child knows you're talking to him, but he just doesn't want to listen. Now, if you let the child draw you into that circle, the child, and you're like, I'm talking to you, leave that place. The child continues to do what he's doing. And you repeat yourself over and over again. The child will learn to wait for you to repeat yourself 10 times before he responds. Because
so how do you get the child to respond immediately? And break that
effective
circle?
communication. For example, you want to talk to, you know, toddlers, for example, they can be distracted because, you know, they are still growing up and all of that. Get the child's eye contact. So, for example,
a child that is watching video game.
That's it. That's one of the
playing.
problems. That's one of the problems. On video games, they can't listen to you because chemically something is being altered already in the brain. So you need to get their attention. The reason some children don't listen is because you are somewhere
in the house,
miles away, and you're like, bring that thing and all of that.
I don't understand, but that's how we're raised now.
That is how we're raised. But
an average parent will call you to come and bring this flower pot in front of
Yes. But you know, technology and all of that, like you mentioned, video games, a child on video games cannot hear you.
So you have to come close to your child to get your child's attention.
You have to connect. You have to connect. That's the world we live in today.
Wow.
Yeah, you have to.
You know, I feel like this is such a huge subject, and I really wish we had more time to talk about it, because especially the connecting part, because I know we are getting there gradually. Unfortunately, there isn't enough time. However, I must say a very big thank you to you, Sandra Oluwadare.
Thank you.
Can't wait for next week's conversation.
Thank you for having me.